Alright, hi guys. We'll be getting started in a minute. Just want to give people another minute or so to come on in, and then I'll move to right over to Basecamp and we'll get started. Okay, I'm gonna turn that off. Okay, hi everyone. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm just going to be going over basically just the basics of Basecamp and what you can do with Basecamp and just all of the features. I'm not necessarily going to go over how we would use Basecamp on the team. I think that's a discussion we have to have once we all understand the basics, and then we can come up with our workflow. But for now, I'm just going to go over, like, you know, how to do things on this, how it's organized right now, and how we can organize it, and what Basecamp is capable of. So I'm also going to have the chat open somewhere. So to start, I guess I've got a list here. So this is Basecamp. This is what Basecamp looks like when you sign in. We're on it normally costs money to use Basecamp, but for students and I guess robotics teams, they let us have it for free. So yeah, this is the homepage. I'll be going over all of these sections down here, the main team HQ, the teams and the projects, later in the video, but for now I guess we'll just talk about this bar up here at the top. So obviously we've got, you know, home. Pings is the next bit. You can choose to basically what pings are, they're just direct messages essentially, so I can like say hi to Tyler. It's pretty standard, you know, just you know, standard messaging. You've got this Hey tab over here. I'll come back to this later, but what this is basically it's a notification feed of everything which is going on in all the groups that you're a part of, all the to-dos, all the message boards. These don't automatically get marked as read just by opening the notification menu. You actually have to click in to each item. You have to manually click into each item in order for it to be marked as read, and until then it'll be just, you know, here chilling. This is good when you want to see like what's, you know, new for you, but you don't really have time to like go in depth and read it just yet. You can also read something, decide it's like too long, and then come back and just mark it as unread, right? Like that. The next window over here is activity. basically you can just go down and like, you know, look at the entire feed this way as well. It kind of looks like Hey, but it's in this format. You can also turn on and off emailing of daily summaries. There's also multiple sections to this as well. You can click on any one of these people and let's look at Peter. You can look at his assignments. None of us really have assignments anymore. I'll go over that later. Overdue to-dos. Someone's activity, like I can look at Alex's, what he's done. Yeah. You can see what to-dos were added and completed. If we go back to like petting zoo, we might see some, maybe not. Yeah, we got. And also upcoming dates. You can basically, if you add things to any one of the calendars as part of Basecamp, all of the events will appear here. So yeah, that's that. I'm just need to make sure the chat's up. Wow. Hi Garrett and Holly. Okay. So with that being said, let's go right back to the homepage. So here we are. Here's the homepage. You can see we've got like a bunch of individual sections here. You have the Montclair Robotics HQ, which is, as the description said, it's basically like stuff everyone needs to know. And then you have each individual team. You've got build, business, CAD, code, electronics, and outreach. Teams, in this case, we've decided to be our divisions. And then we have projects, which right now the projects that at least I'm a part of are Chairman's, Midnight Mayhem, and off-season stuff. So each one of these individual sections is pretty much identical in terms of feature sets. Like, you know, it's got the same 6 basic sections of each Basecamp, which I'll go over in a second. But you can actually change which features you do and don't use in each part of Basecamp by going to the Change Tools menu and, you know, turning off and on what you don't need. So, like, if you decide you don't... if you want email forwards, which I'll show you later, you can just turn that on or off. This feature here is called Docs and Files by default, but I changed it to Wiki because I felt that would be a more appropriate name for what I think we should use the HQ for with the Docs and Files feature. So with that being said, I guess we can dive right into it, the kind of the meat of Basecamp, by just going over each one of these features individually. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, I'm just keeping the chat open. So the first feature we have in most Basecamps is the campfire. As you can see here, it is a hub of productivity. Yeah, so what this is it's basically like an instant messaging place. It's incredibly productive. The base with Basecamp, you're supposed to not use this, or use it as a last resort, or just for quick questions like, you know, when's our next meeting? It's not supposed to be for stuff which you're going to be discussing for more than like an hour, because stuff just gets lost really quickly. It's basically like a Slack channel with all the problems that Slack channels and instant messaging boards have. So this isn't an ideal place, but it's there if you just need to send out a quick message about something. So if we go over here, we've got the message board. This is let me choose one of these. I guess we should start here. So the message board is basically a place where you can post threaded messages. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, you can see each one of these, let's call them topics. Each one of these topics has a theme, has like a question or something you want to discuss. Like Garrett here has, should we do FTC in the 2018-19 season? Will has, he wants to talk about the flow camera and getting a Jetson. I have, you know, my workflow document over here, which is super long. Yeah. What's good about these is it allows us to basically have discussions about very narrow topics and keep track of all the discussion that we're having on that specific topic. So, like, you can see here, we have, should we do FTC? And if I want to, like, go in and discuss FTC, I know that it's going to be in the message board right in this thread. I don't have to, you know, dig through like you would maybe on Slack. Where is Slack? Whereas on Slack, you know, you just, if you want to find discussion about a topic, you would have to like scroll through all of this, or use like their Slack's really terrible search features. It's just not a great experience. Whereas with Basecamp, you know, it's all in a very standardized format. So when you're creating a topic, you are able to pick a category. You know, these are pretty standard categories: announcement, FYI, heartbeat. Heartbeat is a Basecamp's word for when when you're like a group leader working on some sort of project and you want to give an update to the rest of the team. The people over at Basecamp call that a heartbeat. So I could be like, you know, robot petting zoo 2019 getting started update. And then down here you've got, you know, your standard rich text editor. You can do, you know, lists of sorts and all that jazz. You can also customize who is notified. So, you know, if you want to post this heartbeat just so it's out there, but you don't really want to notify everyone and have it appear in their hey feed up here, you can just, you know, select no one and then it'll be done. But I'm not going to post this. I'm just going to head right back out. No, not this. Yeah. So that's that. Right. Let's go back out here. For the to-dos, I'm going to go over to a project we did a bit ago, the revised intake, which we created for Montgomery. With Basecamp, this is actually, as you can see here, this is an archived project, so it used to be down here, but now since it's been archived, you can actually see all the archive teams and projects. You go down here, and I just went in here. So, revised intake, let's look at these to-dos. So this is kind of the Trello-esque aspect of Basecamp. So what you can do here is maybe I'll change the view up here. Okay, so basically these are all the to-do tasks for the revised intake, and what Basecamp lets you do is it allows you to group all of these tasks which need to be accomplished into separate concrete groups. So you can see we've got the design group, we've got the CAD group, we've got manufacturing, assembling, wiring, and coding. And then within each one of these groups, let's go to manufacturing, for example, we have these subgroups. So in the manufacturing group of the revised intake to-dos, we have, you know, big mill, small mill, lathe, and other and by hand. And if I was to I'm just trying to think of a good way to do this. No, maybe there is no good way. So what I'm able to do is basically I'm able to create a task. Let's call this make a plate. So here I'm making a task. I can assign it to someone. Let's say I want Peter to do it. I can choose to notify them about that assignment, and then when they're done I can have Basecamp notify I don't think Anika's on Basecamp then. Let's just have it notify me. And then I can set a due date. You know, this is all pretty standard stuff. This is on Trello as well. And you can just click add a to-do list. And then ta-da, it's there. Within this, within basically everything in Basecamp. Oh, wait. So you can also drag this to-do between the separate subgroups. So make a plate would be probably, let's just say it's a small mill task, and there it's under small mill. Peter's doing it. Within basically everything in Basecamp, you can comment on it. So this here, let's go out here. This to-do page I don't think has a comment thread per se, but each of these groups itself, you can click on them and then start commenting on the to-dos like you see me and Rich doing here. And then each of these to-dos themselves, let's say this one here, this was a finished backplate. Here I've made a couple comments on it just to keep track of how much work has been done on that particular piece. So this is an example of a task we created back I think between Mount Olive and Montgomery when we were working on the new intake. So you can see here I've added a bunch of notes. This is a bad example. Let me go to one where I assigned it to people. So let's go here. Yeah. Okay, so this task was for the front back wheel hex shaft. You can see up here it was a under the manufacturing lathe group and assigned to Theo and Tristan. I made some notes here based off of what I was told by CAD. So CAD told me it was a 1/2-inch hex. We needed 4 of these per robot, and they also gave me the name of it: front, back wheel, hex shell for intake. And you can also see here I've actually attached the CAD drawing to the to-do. This is really nice because if you're on build and you need something to do, all you have to do is you can just go to manufacturing. You can look at one of these tasks, you can click on it, and then all of a sudden you've got all the information you need right here. You have how many you need to make, you know what part of the robot it's going on. And this is a pretty special, or this is an unusual manufacturing job because there's actually 2 CAD files associated with it for the same area, kind of. So you can see here you've got parts 1 and parts 2. It was assigned to Theo and Peter. It was supposed to be this was supposed to notify me when they were done with it, but they never marked it as done. And you can also see I made some comments here. So yeah, this was the to-dos here are pretty powerful. They're very useful. It's simple to use, and it worked really well when we were trying to divide up all the manufacturing tasks, because I think Aninka wasn't really there on those particular days. So what we did was we just I worked with Spencer to just put it all in a physical Trello, and then I got Tristan, Theo, and Peter just to work all the tasks down here. And as you can see here, we got a lot done from it. I just want to give another example of to-dos we did. This is Robot Petting Zoo. This is the project that Alex was just using to keep track of everything we had to do. So you can see kind of similar themes here. Let's go to like here, for example, if it'll let me in. Yeah, electronics workshop. So this was, I added this when I was just working with Alex, assigned it to Serena, gave her till Friday to do it. She worked on it and then she finished it. Alex ticked it off and also made a note about how that was proceeding. So yeah, that gives you a pretty overall idea of how projects progress. So let's go back in here now. Actually, any questions about to-dos? I'll just wait for the delay to pass by. Okay. Right, so seeing as there are no questions, I'll be moving on. So the next part is schedule. This is pretty straightforward. It's a calendar. You add an event. So like competition. You can choose which day it's on, who it's with. It doesn't really matter that much. But what's cool about this is anything you add, you can add it to your own Google Calendar, Outlook, or iCal, so it automatically syncs all those events with your own personal calendar account. So that's pretty cool. The only one annoying thing I found about this is that there's no way to have recurring events, so you can't just put all our meetings in here, which is kind of annoying. So I guess this might be designed to only be used for like one-off events, but that doesn't really make any sense to me. So that's that. Kind of stupid, but whatever. Oh, this next thing, automatic check-ins. This is really cool. So an automatic check-in, I archive these. Let me just, actually I won't do that. So what an automatic check-in is basically, they come in the form of questions, as you can see from new questions up here, and they're basically questions which you can have Basecamp ask a certain subset of people on the team automatically on a regular basis. So I could be like a common one is, what did you work on today? And you could say, you know, daily on the days we have meetings, at the end of the day, I want to ask everyone. And this allows you to, basically, it's a great way of keeping track of what everyone's doing, kind of if you're a manager, it gives you more transparency into what your own, the people you're managing are doing. And if you're from other divisions, it allows you to catch up with and see what other divisions are working on, and maybe check for any conflicts with what other divisions are working on in your own work. So it's a pretty powerful tool. There's a lot of things you can do with it. Earlier, when I was setting up Basecamp, I had it asking 2 questions. What will you be working on this week? And what did you work on today? You can do it any way you like. And the cool thing, maybe I'll go to code and show you. Because Will has this set up. I've never responded to it, but you can actually see if I was to respond to it. Yeah, so this basically, to see what people's responses are for each day and what they've been historically, you can just click on the question and you automatically get an instant overview of all the responses to the question, not just on the particular day the question was asked, but also historically. So you can see my answer that I just put up today, and then you can also see Will's answer from Friday, Wednesday, Tuesday, etc. Each of these also has a discussion that you can just go into, so you can see I asked Will a question here and he explained to me what he was going on about. Oh, another feature about Basecamp comments is just these boosts. Boosts are they're like likes, except they're more expressive. You can just sounds neat. It's basically a way of saying I like what you're doing or whatever, and you can just be like that. Plus, it's good to do these just to encourage people to do good stuff, but whatever. It's just a fun feature they have. So that's automatic check-ins. Now the wiki. Well, this isn't called the wiki. Let me actually go back to robot petting. Not robot. This one. So, no, that's bad as well. So by default, this section is called Docs and Files. What I did here is I went in here and changed the name to CAD Drawings and Files, because that's what I was using it as in the revised intake project. So if we go into Docs and Files, or in this case CAD Drawings and Files, it's basically Google Drive. This is a folder, and then this is here. This is just a file that I uploaded. Each file can have a discussion, as you can see there. But what's also cool about this particular implementation of having different files is that you can replace a file with a new version of a file, which is good for CAD files, because oftentimes a CADer will draw something up, and then something will come up when we're machining it, and we realize that we need to make a change to the design. So here I've actually uploaded a couple versions of this. Yeah, a couple versions of this to Basecamp. So you can see the original version I uploaded on March 14th down here, and the new version that was uploaded on March 15th, where we added holes. I think, yeah, we added these maybe just those two. Yeah, just these 2 holes here for spaces, and also that hole there. So you can see there. So the way you would go about uploading a new version of a file, you just click replace with a new version. You let's just drag this. This is my report card from this year, but you can drag that there and then just describe the changes you've made. So let's discard that. So that's Docs and Files. You can actually see over in the HQ here, I'm calling it Wiki, because you can actually, here you see, you can add any number of sorts of different files to the Docs and Files page. You can link to files from Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, OneDrive. I don't know what Box is. Box, OneDrive. So you can link to Google Drive drawings, those types of files. You can also, start a new doc and use Basecamp's rich text editor to just type, whatever you want. Which I've done here. I've said, plans. This was March 16th, so don't judge me for very short plans. But so here you can see plans for the off season. This was just something I kept track of. So yeah, that's that. I also have this empty robot design folder for any notes you want to make about robot design. So yeah, but so the Docs and Files page, it's really customizable, pretty cool as well. So the last thing I want to go over, it's disabled most of the time by default, I think, in most Basecamps, but you can enable it down here, and I've enabled it for outreach. It's called email forwards. This is pretty cool. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to forward any email to this email address here, and Basecamp will send you a follow-up email, or you can use this special email here. I'm going to reset that. Basecamp will let you forward any email you have to one of these addresses, and it'll immediately go. Wait, this team has been. Oh, this is the wrong team. Here. Yeah, and that email will immediately come up inside this Basecamp team in the email forwards page. So I forwarded this email from Alice to a bunch of to Tian, me, and a bunch of the other Boost Club members. Basically, she was asking Tian about what we needed for the petting zoo, and what I've done is I've managed to forward that email right into Basecamp, so anyone in the outreach team here can see Basecamp, can see this email here, and they formatted it nicely. It's they've put the images right in here, so you can just click on them. And then from here you can just type comments, and as you can see here, only people with access to the team will see what you write below, so you can discuss an email from within Basecamp without directly replying to Alice. Now, if I wanted, I could also just reply right to Alice. I don't know where you would do that exactly. Maybe it's just by clicking that. There you go. So now anything I write here will be emailed directly to Alice, and people with access to the team can see our reply too. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That would be useful for outreach or anyone who's working on things like that. So I believe with that, that's all of the sections within Basecamp. So I'm just going to look over some questions. For Spencer, yeah, there is no file size limit for Basecamp. So you can upload whatever size files you want, and Basecamp will just take it, pretty much. No, you can't see my report card. Does Basecamp support justified alignment? Let's check. No, doesn't appear to. And I've just kind of messed up that page. Great. Okay. Alright, it's still fine. So no justified alignment. Okay. Any other questions about what I've gone over so far? I'm just going to wait a bit for the delay. No ASMR. Okay. I'm just going to keep going. If you guys have any questions, you can just type them right into the chat window, and I'll get to them at some point. So with that, let's go into the next section. So that's pretty much all, like, the main features of Basecamp, but there's a couple like nuances to it which are important to know when you're working with Basecamp. Actually, I think I forgot to talk about the search feature up here. So this is actually good search, unlike Slack, which is really slow and terrible, and half the time it really doesn't get you what you're looking for. Here I can just, I search for Cord, I get every mention of Cord everywhere. I can search for Jetson, I get every mention of Jetson, including PMs I got from Will here. So yeah, that's like actually a good search feature. Okay, so with that, yeah, so one quirk with Basecamp is that any one of these groups that it's not like Slack where you have public versus private channels. You kind of have to be explicitly invited to one of these groups to even know it exists. So if I were to leave chairman's right now, don't worry, I'm coming back, but if I remove myself from chairmans. I don't even know it exists. When we're talking about coming from Slack, that seems kind of scary, because shouldn't we be able to know what's going on with that project even if we're not working on it? And that's really a discussion we have to have, whether we just automatically add everyone to every single project and team we have. But what the people over at Basecamp do for their workflow is that they believe that if you're not directly working on a project, you shouldn't be in the project, because being in the project means you get notified about all the activity in all the parts of these in all the parts of the project itself. So if you're like on electronics and working on an on-season project, and you're like heavily involved in the to-do of like revised intake or whatever, you're not really going to want to get notifications about between Alex and Tien talking about like robot petting zoo when it's like November of like next year or something. So what Basecamp suggests you do for the people who are not a part of the project is go into your HQ, go into message board as project leader, and do a heartbeat, and that's why I did robot petting zoo. So you would do robot petting zoo November update here, and then you would describe all the happenings for the project here for all the people who aren't in it. Yeah, so there's upsides and downsides to this approach. I think one argument for it is that when you get so much, the amount of information you would get from being inside of a project that you're not really involved in is probably too much to gain any useful insights about it in the first place, because you just don't really have the time and energy to, sift through massive amounts of information when you just really need a summary. So what the heartbeat would be for would be giving that summary to the people who aren't involved in that project. But then you also have to be really disciplined to make sure that the project leader writes those updates on a regular basis, and that they keep on top of it, so that the other members of the team don't lose track of what's going on in that particular project, especially if they're interested in it or if it affects their own work. So there's another consequence of this as well, which is that so you see teams here. Can I add? Yes, I can add you to the CAD team, Spencer. Here. So I'll just show off how you add people. So you can it says add people by email, but really you just do that and it fills it out for you. There. That's easy. Okay, so another consequence of that is with teams. So on Slack, you have all the division channels. We do quite a bit of work in them, and they're all public. If you're not in a division, you can go into them. But with Basecamp, as a consequence of, these little sections being private by default, if you're not part of one of these teams, you can't really see what's going on inside these teams. So like if I just, let me just demonstrate again. If I just, remove myself from CAD, I can't see it. I don't know it exists. I don't know what's going on. And a lot of the time, and this would be bad if we used Basecamp exactly how we used Slack, where we did work inside of these division areas, and we discussed and we had to-dos that no one else on the team could really see. But with and you can see Will has, this is really bad practice, but Will has already started putting to-dos directly in code. Generally, there's actually a really good reason for this, and that's that project work should not go in these team sections. For like, if you feel like you need to put a to-do inside of a team, take a second to think, could I create a project out of this and invite the relevant people who are working on that project to that project instead? So for example, when we're talking about CB framework tests. So for those who aren't really in the know, Code is working on trying out a framework that Rich made a couple years ago just to see how it works on the new on the Power Up robot. So yeah, this could go in code, but you also could just put it in a separate project. Maybe as part of this off-season project over here, you could go to to-dos, you could, add a new list, call it cyborg testing, and just work inside that. That's a much better way of doing it, because this way, everyone who's working on anything remotely off-season can see what you're doing inside of here, and you can coordinate within this off-season project. Now, for bigger tasks like, the revised intake, which I put here, you might want to spin off your whole project. You might want to put revised intake in a project of itself. But for something smaller like cyborg testing, I say, just put that inside of the off-season overall to-do list, because that's not really big enough to warrant being in a project of its own. So that's kind of that little quirk there. You can see in this off-season project I've actually kept track of some ideas we've had over the past few days. Not past few days, past few months. So let's see. Yeah, so projects are really where you're supposed to be doing all of the work that you'd be doing in the season, not these areas here. That's not where you should be doing work. Okay, so I think that's all I really wanted to go through in this presentation. So now I'm going to take basically any questions you have related to how we might use it in robotics, any concerns you have, any suggestions you guys have about basically what we'd be doing here. Maybe I'll go here as well, just in case people can't see the chat. Okay, just in the meantime, while I'm waiting for the delay to pass, I'm gonna go over. Yeah, so actually, Spencer just asked a question. So, the purpose of Slack, if we were to move to Basecamp, it would probably be like exclusively for social purposes, not related to teamwork, or maybe for things which are more suited for an instant messaging environment. But I'm having trouble thinking exactly what those would be. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I think Slack's really bad for productivity. I think that this is a much better format for doing work in than Slack is. So, Tyler asked an interesting question. Will we still use Discord for important after-school meetings? So I think what prompted that was a discussion we had over in, let's go in this thread. This thread here, kind of here, about the merits of having an in-person meeting versus, having a discussion on here on Basecamp. So, yes, we will probably still use Discord for important after-school meetings. The issue... Okay. So, the issue with doing, Discord or, just meeting after school in person for important meetings, like when we're just trying to discuss or figure out what the future of the team would be like, is that it's Montclair. A lot of people on the team are really driven and do a lot of things other than robotics. So a lot of them will take a lot of classes and will have a lot of homework to do as a result, or are involved in a number of extracurricular activities, or have jobs and other obligations which they have to attend to. And that's completely understandable, but the reality of that is that it makes it significantly more difficult to schedule kind of one-off meetings, like a talk where we would go on Discord and talk about our future. The reason why I decided to do this particular tutorial, I guess you could call it, over on a YouTube live stream is because it allows me to still engage with the people who can come, while also allowing the recording to just be left there for anyone who still wants to see what we discussed in this video, but couldn't really make it in person. So yes, we would still use Discord, but we should probably think about what we could reasonably put just on Discord. So this thread is talking about should we do FTC in the 2018-19 season, and I think this is an ideal example of something that we in previous years discussed in person in like the school cafeteria. For those who don't know, last year we had a series of what we called logistics meetings, where we kind of came to various decisions about how we should run the team next year. So what this thread is basically a place where you can see Garrett put out a whole speech about how about the merits or disadvantages of doing FTC next year for training. So this is a good example of a topic that we could discuss on Basecamp as opposed to in person, because you're just fleshing out your ideas. You're giving people plenty of opportunity to also share their ideas and have rebuttals against any of the points you bring up here. So you can see me and Rich had a conversation here. And it's not like Slack where, you can't find any discussion you had about any particular topic, because based on the topic of this here from the message board, that everything in this FTC conversation is going to be about FTC. Now, of course, that's not strictly true, because, as you can see right here, me and Rich had a discussion about this article I linked up here. But the point is that it's kind of obvious that this conversation sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's not going to be like a permanent detraction. Rich here said, we should, that we should probably have a separate discussion about it as well. Like, broadly, this is going to be a good place to find discussion about FTC. So that's that point. I think Rich asked a question over in Slack. Where would a project like Vision go? In projects or within a team, or mastery of riveting? Okay, so in terms of like our exact workflow, a lot of that we have to come to an agreement on. So everything I say about on that particular topic is just what I think is appropriate. So when Rich says a project like Vision, what he's talking about, actually, I think if we go back to this and go into like a flow camera here, we had a bit of a discussion about it. So what he's talking about is the code team doing more research into how we could utilize various types of cameras and optical sensors to make our robot more aware of its environment. So we could use what Will's talking about here, a flow camera, to basically within a certain margin of error get our robot's position relative to where it started from. With normal optical cameras, we could possibly use pieces of software to detect where various objects are within our camera's field of view. So what Rich is saying then is, where would a research project like that go within this framework? And I would say I don't think that's big enough for its own project. And I think that, my thinking is that internal research and development projects, which are really only relevant to a single division, can go within that division's area or within the off-season project area. I don't know which. We'd have to think about, the merits of doing one approach over the other. But if we were to do it within code, we would maybe have a list of to-dos and maybe a thread running constantly about what's going on. And then at the same time, we would also publish heartbeats here every so often about Vision R&D update. So you would post a heartbeat every so often about how your research is going, just so people have it available to them, that information. I think you gave another example as well. What was it? Okay, so mastery of riveting. Yeah, that would... I'd say the same thing. That would also go like inside build, and then you'd post heartbeats every so often. So any other questions? Let me go to live chat. Does Basecamp have a means of verbal communication? My gut feeling is no, it does not. I will check. No, it doesn't. No verbal communication. To do that, you would probably use something like Discord, or you would go back to Slack and just start calling people again. Basecamp, the company, for their own internal project management, uses, Basecamp itself for managing its projects, and also uses basically an instant messaging client, that like a custom solution they have used. Am I going to add myself back to the places you've left? Since I am an owner, I can actually access any project or team, so I will, in fact, add myself back to those places right there. So, any other questions? So it really depends on how the team decides. So I'm first of all, just off the bat, my vision of my role right now is simply as advisory. I don't consider myself to have the the absolute the same responsibilities and powers the team captain did 2 months ago. So it really depends on what the team comes up with as a consensus, if they want to use Basecamp, how they want to use Basecamp. There's various issues that Slack has when we use it for productivity. It makes it kind of really hard to keep track of where discussion about things is happening. We have, how many channels now? We have a ridiculous amount of channels. I don't want to count them all, but we have like 100 channels, and although half of them are for joking around, half of them are serious. So like, how do I know when I discuss something? Should I put it in admin? Do I put it in robot design? Do I put it in build? Do I put it in code or CAD? And to stay up to date on a single project, I may have to be in 10 channels to understand everything that's going on with the robot, which frankly to me is a bit, it's ridiculous. Whereas over on Basecamp, on the other hand, you would just create, a new project, call it robot, invite everyone to it, and it's all there in one place. It's organized. You don't get automatically notified by about everything. It's all up here. You can choose to, stop getting notified about certain things if you want to as well. So that's interesting, I think. Yeah, Spencer, discussion there. So yeah. Oh, I forgot one thing. This is actually really important. I can't believe I forgot it. So with projects down here, you can actually create templates for a project. I've created 2 of them here. So if we look at the robot project template up here that I've made, this is basically what a Basecamp project looks like by default, except it's got a blueprint background behind it. And what you can do here is you can set up a Basecamp project as you normally would, and then back from this menu, you can say, okay, I want to create a new project from template, robot project template, and we can call this like deep space. Boom. It's built from template. I go in, it's exactly the same. It's got these to-do subgroups, which aren't there by default, and it's all there and done for us. So I'm going to show you another use case. So the other use case for this would be, you know, competition preparation template. I automatically have a packing to-do list right here that we can just spin up every time we need to go to a competition. We know what we have to do. We have a nice way of doing it, and we can just create basically products from a template exactly like that. So sorry, Taz asked a question. I didn't really answer it. So the short answer is that I really see us only using Slack for social reasons in the future. I think it's not good for productivity. I think people will prefer, and already do prefer, using Basecamp for productivity when they've tried using it. Yeah, so I think if we do end up using Basecamp more often, Slack will kind of go by the wayside. And if you do decide to move to Slack, I suggest you archive all the working channels, just so people aren't tempted to put stuff in Slack when they aren't checking it. Any other questions? I might talk a bit more about proposals. Okay, so going forward, I think what Basecamp is really good at is sharing ideas and enabling the sharing of ideas by encouraging the use of pitches, as we can see here. This is I made Will do a couple pitches when he kept having ideas about things he wanted to try out. What a pitch is it's basically, well, what it's supposed to be is a well thought out proposal about something you want to do on the team. So in this case, Will wants to buy some cameras and do some research to try and figure out how to do them, how to use them with our robot. I think it's a good idea if we follow a similar structure for any ideas we have about restructuring the team for next year. So I'm going to, just as we close up, I'm going to encourage all of you, whether you're whoever's watching, whether you're a member of the team, whether you're a departing member of the team, whether you're alumni or captain, a mentor, whatever, if you have an idea about how we should restructure the team, go to the message board, click new message, and just write a pitch. You know, there's no harm in sharing your ideas, because if you have a bad idea, maybe there's good parts to it that we can work on and that we can discuss, you know, as a team. But if you have a good idea, that might be something you want to implement next year, and posting it here is a great way of making it more visible to the rest of the team, while also inviting criticism on it in case changes need to be made to it. So you can see here I have this, actually I don't know where my thing went, but I had this giant rant about you know, productivity and workflow and things like that. I don't know where that went, but yeah, so seriously, just write a pitch. I'm going to be putting my structure plan up here as a pitch myself. I'll be doing that sometime in the future, very soon. I don't know when, but soon I'll be doing that so that we can start discussing it. Generally, when we're talking about structuring for next year, we make decisions on that by reaching a general consensus on the team. My status as, you know, outgoing team captain doesn't change that at all. My ideas are and should be treated as if it came from any other member of the team. So yeah, seriously, if you have any ideas, create a pitch. I'll be doing that. Keep an eye on Basecamp. Yeah. I'll wait a bit, but with that, I don't think there's anything else to discuss. We should, if we want to move to Basecamp, I think what we're going to do or my plan is I'm going to, wait a bit, allow people time to view the video if they want to view the video. I'm going to start a discussion in Slack about if we want to move to Basecamp for productivity or try it out in the off season. It's not a trivial change. It's a pretty significant change in how we're going to go about doing work from here on out. But I think it's a lot of people seem to like Basecamp when they've used it on their own or with a small group of people on the team. So I think it's time to, move to the next step and try it out for the next month that we have doing work right now. So I see Rich is typing, so I'm going to wait for him to finish and then... Yeah, so Rich is asking a question. I'm not quite sure. Most people, at least as it is right now, again, that's a discussion we need to have. Most people right now are on at least their own division team. We need to have a discussion about whether we restrict teams to just the division members or other people as well. I'm going to go ahead and invite you to this one, at least, because I think that's pretty relevant. So yeah, that's a discussion we need to have, whether we let people just be added to teams if they want to be added to teams. People shouldn't feel like they need to be on a team unless they get involved in, internal division improvement work, like, Cyborg framework tests over here. So from that context, Rich, I think it would be appropriate for you to be on, also maybe build, because you get pretty involved in that as well. But that's something we need to discuss as well. Yeah, other people are on teams, just not you. All right. Unless anyone has any other questions, that's all I really have to say about Basecamp. I'll give people time to watch the video, and then we can have a discussion, vote on it, whatever. Okay, so I'm just gonna wrap up the stream then. Thank you all for staying if you did, or coming if you just came for a bit. I hope you learned something about Basecamp, and I presume we'll be talking about this all sometime soon. So with that, see you later, guys. I guess I'll just hit stop streaming then. Alright, bye-bye.